Welcome back to another episode of Don't Waste the Chaos. I'm your host, Kerri Roberts. If you're a leader, business owner, office manager, or HR pro, you've joined me for a good one. On the pod today, I've got Josh Robinson, who is the president and second generation owner of Checkmate HCM, which is based in Concord, New Hampshire. I've known Josh and his team for around 6 years now, and I've done business with him as a client, and I've also encouraged my clients in his direction over and over again. Josh is passionate about creating a workforce that is energetic, ambition-filled, and geared for growth. Developing a culture of innovation, accountability, and high performance has been the key to continuing success at Checkmate. Checkmate's vision is to create a world where their clients are better able to utilize their missions by providing them with efficient workforce management solutions supported by a motivated and engaged team of professionals, and I have definitely seen this firsthand. Josh is also active in New Hampshire's professional and civic communities. He is a member of the Leadership Greater Concord class of 2009 and currently serves on the board of the Greater Concord Chamber of Commerce. Beyond the office, Josh is an avid hiker and skier and loves spending his free time with his wife and his 6-year-old daughter. So we are talking about the world of HR and payroll software today. Josh's company, Checkmate, specializes in offering payroll services for small and medium-sized businesses. What makes Checkmate so appealing to most is that they are too small of a business to not recognize the intricacies of how it works in a small to mid-sized business. So he is very relatable on that size. It allows him and his coworkers the privilege of establishing intimate relationships with their clients, and they know the value of that. Now, I mentioned earlier Josh's second generation owner. Checkmate is a family-owned business founded by Stephen Robinson, Josh's father, in 1994. I love a sustainable family-owned business, and I know many of my listeners are working to build generational wealth through this process themselves. So Josh, thank you so much for joining me. It's fun to hop out of client work and talk more strategic with you today. So let's jump right in and give the listeners what they came here for. So what are the most significant challenges HR and payroll departments face today, and how do modern software solutions address these challenges?
Excellent. Well, thank you, Kerri. Thank you for the opportunity here to be on the podcast. And that's a great question. It is basically we are on the front lines of that every single day. It is the core of what we do. The end product that we produce is the active users are, the HR managers, HR directors, CFOs, CHROs at the organizations, in this case, throughout the country that we service. And these days, I don't think that I'm going to be, winning any Nobel Prizes here when I tell you that the biggest thing that we find a place for our solution strategically in is employee engagement, employee retention, and, recruitment. Right now, it is, it remains the case that it is so challenging. It has been since, I think just before COVID. I think just before COVID was the first time we were ever ghosted on a job interview. And, I kind of look back at that as the beginning of this new era of HR where, we have, back then we did have, a fairly large percentage of disengaged employees throughout the workforce, if you look trend wise, different industries and whatnot, and that has only grown. And now, with the difficulty in finding talent and then retaining talent and inflationary, wage pressures, all of these things put us in a position where we need to make sure that the benefits package is getting more valuable every year. We need to make sure that the technology, this is where Checkmate really comes into play. We need to make sure that the technology that we put in front of our team, where they can enroll in their benefit plans, where they can request their time off, where they can view their pay statement. We need to make sure that that is another place of engagement. It's an opportunity for an employer to do more than just, give someone an image of their pay statements. And so an effectively implemented payroll technology, HR technology that has an end user focus, the employee, not just the HR director, is really a powerful thing for today's, HR leaders, HR managers who are trying to fight that battle.
It's so true. And gosh, you listed off so many of the challenges. And this is what small to mid-sized businesses and large businesses are focusing on and facing every day. It's huge. It is a struggle. When you talked about the increase in compensation, I just read a report about that this morning. It's mind-blowing where we're at, but we're not going to change it. We just have to figure out how to operate inside of it, innovate it, make it easier. So yeah, I love that. So can you provide some examples of how technology has helped streamline HR and payroll processes for business?
Absolutely. This is what gets me up in the morning. I have, a few mantras that, everyone on my team hears over and over and over again. And one of those is that I don't want to pay a human with a brain to do anything that I can get a robot to do. And this is where, this whole conversation that's been happening around AI and technology. And, there's been a fair bit of, buzz around AI and taking jobs and things like that. And, where, I am passionate about, my team is passionate about is, as you said in the intro, our mission is to enable employers to achieve their missions more efficiently through the effective and efficient use of technology. And what this means is, a lot of times a customer comes to us from a competitor and they were using the competitor system to handle their payroll. They might have been using the competitor system to manage timesheets. But chances are that there's, numerous things about what they were doing with that other system that, yes, all we need to do on day one is replace it. But that's not good enough because they weren't using that technology properly to begin with. So what we bring to the table is, the ability to actually, show the customer how, okay, yes, this is what you had been, you'd been working with, that 3-letter competitor for, the last 8 years. And this is what you were using for your timesheets there. This was the workflow for time off request approvals that had, 4 people involved. Well, did there really need to be 4 people involved? Isn't it just this, the direct supervisor that really needs to have the authority to approve those time off requests? Or do we really need the mid-level manager to also be involved in that? We have these conversations so that we give our customer the right technology solution. And we eliminate inefficiencies. Inefficiencies are most clicks. Okay. So, internally here at Checkmate, one of the things that I'm also passionate about is, our implementation people. A lot of times, if we didn't have a passion for technology and a passion for eliminating most clicks wherever we can, most of what our implementation team would be focused on for most of the days is copying and pasting data, moving data from one system to another, because that's what implementation, it's, the conversion from, our competitor system to ours. But we use technology internally for process automation, for workflow automation, where, as soon as our tax team uploads a file into the project, that we're using to build a client account, it automatically kicks off an email to the customer asking the customer to sign off on, their tax rates. So for instance, that's just one example of a place where no human on my side needs to be clicking the mouse 6 times, needs to be typing that email, needs to be adding the file attachment. So, every one of the, 100 or so new clients that we bring on this year, none of those will have to have a manual email sent to them in that respect. So we use that same philosophy everywhere on everything that we do. How do we minimize the most clicks? How do we maximize efficiency? How do we, if a customer wants employee onboarding, and they send us over all of their new hire forms and they send us, 3 pages that are each a half page of text with a signature line at the bottom, we will have a conversation around, is there a way that we could use headings and merge this into one document and have one signature? And, no longer do we need to track 3 employee signed documents. We only need to track 1. So, when you apply that concept, that idea to everything that you do, saving one mouse click here Yeah, sometimes what we're talking about saves a mouse click right here, and it's just a mouse click. But the philosophy carrying through to everything that we do as a company, it puts our customers in a position where no matter what they're doing with us, I know that it's going to be done with efficiency in mind. It's going to be done in a way that will, in all likelihood, surprise our customer with how simple we broke it down to, and how little training is required for them to make use of what we've done. So it's all about reducing mouse clicks, reducing screens, reducing the things that need to be in front of, that need to take up eye space in order to get our jobs done.
I love that. And if you are a business owner today saying, I don't have time to care about mouse clicks, that's the whole point. You're supposed to find a partner who does. And so I love that. I love that you brought that up. I also love that you brought up AI. So interesting to me. I follow a ton of human resources publications, and I see that there's a lot of angst from HR pros worried about them losing their job, or more entry level folks losing their job. And I love what you said. Like, if we utilize AI appropriately, which I use AI in my business a ton, and if I use it appropriately, then I have more space to be strategic and use my brain, which is where my value is at, not just executing on a process that anybody in the whole world could do or a robot could do. So yeah, that's a really good point. And I love how a company can know that when they partner with your team, you're not just going to take their kind of jankety processes that they're already executing. If they were already using technology, it would be improved likely. A lot of them, right, they're coming from one tech to another because they're dissatisfied, or maybe they're a smaller business and are new to tech in this space. And I love that you all aren't just duplicating their pre-existing process, that you're putting eyes on it and brains on it and saying, how can this be better? So I love that. I think that's definitely a value add that I see your team bring. So in what ways do HR and payroll software solutions support compliance with labor laws? I know we've seen a lot of change. I feel like I've seen a lot of change over the last 20 plus years of my HR career, but recently I just feel like it's accelerated. How does your software, or softwares in general, support compliance with labor laws and regulations, especially in industries with complex workforce management needs?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. That's a great question. And the fact of the matter is that the power, for the HR department, or the HR professional in a company to use technology to help ensure compliance is 100% available. And, with our technology, it is very functional. It is not overly complicated in order to achieve success in ensuring compliance with your basic, labor laws, even the more complex labor laws like Davis-Bacon Act stuff. But the thing about it is that, there's always, and this goes back to the thing we were just talking about with AI. Okay. There is never going to be a situation where human resources can happen without a human. It's just not. I mean, I can't fathom AI getting so sophisticated, and I just wouldn't trust it enough, even if it were, where, technology is powerful. Technology can be so impactful. The rewards for spending, a little bit of time automating something with technology can pay off tenfold in relatively short periods of time, but it needs to be monitored. It needs to be verified. So you can use, a time system like we provide to create rules that will throw flags around, when people need to be compensated for various different types of things, when people need to be, of course, paid overtime. You can use technology like ours to, create dashboards for managers where they would log in every day so that they could proactively reassign schedules if they see some of their employees creeping up on 40 hours for the current work week. We could reassign some people on the fly and keep our overtime budget low. You can use technology to monitor, intermittent FMLA leave. We have as part of our technology FMLA manager, which is useful for that purpose. You can use technology, to isolate and provide to different groups of your employees varying levels of benefit offerings, And, through that, when you do that sort of thing, the compliance there is more around, making sure everything that you do falls in line with your stated rules in your handbook and, things of that nature. But, that's where, when we configure our system for customers, we don't ask a customer to fill out a questionnaire to give us all of the ins and outs of their accrual policy necessarily. I mean, we have a form that we could use for that, but we usually just ask them to send us the handbook. And then we ask them to explain in writing all of the ways in which they deviate from the rules in the handbook. And then what we do is we go back to them and say, okay, well, you're missing carryover rules. There's no rules that limit the amount of time that somebody could carry over from one accrue year to another. Usually, most of our clients would have, a more deep, tiered structure for seniority. We offer like best practice guidance to customers and that sort of thing. But at the end of the day, how do they use technology for compliance? At the end of the day, the core of what we do, payroll compliance, the nice thing about that from a client perspective is the how is really, that is all real figured out on the payroll side. There is you would have to go far out of your way to create an earning code that didn't automatically handle taxes properly. And again, that's part of our role. Our client would ask us, to create an earning code or a deduction code, and then we would do that, and then they would go full speed ahead to process their payroll. So when it comes to those sort of things, your basic tax compliance, your basic regulatory compliance, where it involves reporting to authorities, that is, something that is just inherent in our service. But then, how technology ensures compliance requires a clean database. Okay. It requires a customer to maintain a database well. What I'm thinking about right now is, we do have many customers that use our system for EEO reporting. And they've just opened up the window for uploading your EEO-1 reports for 2023. And as long as the EEO classification field in our system for every client has the right value for that person, and the gender field has the right value, and the other, variables that go into EEO reporting have the right value, then we can automate the production of an EEO-1 file and upload it and the client can upload it to the EEO site. But if they don't maintain their database, or we don't maintain depending on the relationship we have with the customer, if it's not clean, well, then the automation behind that compliance reporting obligation gets messy. So it's really, maintaining the clean database. The other thing that I will say that technology does allow that customers, active and heavy users of technology, just need to be cognizant of as you use technology like ours, is you can, if you misuse it, and if you have a provider that would allow it, we have controls that prevent customers from doing this sort of thing in our system. But I have seen other systems where a customer has inadvertently overwritten history. So for instance, instead of adding another record of base compensation, they edit the current record of base compensation. And now they've lost, the history behind the previous rate that was earned by that employee, and, only have the current rate in effect. So they don't even have a date of, and not to mention the ability to generate like a graph that shows someone's progression through the company. So the ability to overwrite your own data with technology is something that you need to be careful about too. But if you have these things in mind, if you have these concerns in mind, if you go into it from a perspective of, not overwriting your data, utilizing technology that, gives you the power to control your reports. And that's really what I would say. Like, you have a pretty decent technology solution when it doesn't take, a major, act of Congress to create, a new job costing report that shows you your payroll cost by department. If you're able to do that sort of thing in the system that you use without support from the technology provider that you're working with, then usually those kind of systems, they're pretty decent systems. If, on the other hand, every single time you need a new piece of information about your workforce, you need to reach out to the provider and ask for it special and then wait a week or two before they even get to it, then you might be in a position where you want to think about, finding a more powerful technology offering that would bring some efficiencies.
Yeah, and I'm hearing you primarily talk about two key things here. One is a partner that's going to set up your system correctly. And the next one is a partner that trains you how to use the system so you don't mess it up on the back end.
Exactly.
Because really, if you're using it as designed, that's what these tools are for, is to spit out the compliance pieces and you not have to worry about them. But a big part is proper setup and then proper utilization. So I like that. That was good. How do modern software solutions adapt to the evolving needs, specifically of remote and hybrid work environments, especially considering that recent shift in work dynamics?
That's a great question. And it goes back to something that I said earlier in regard to using technology to create an engagement solution for your workforce. In order to use technology to create an engagement solution for your workforce, especially an HR technology solution, what in my experience that usually involves is a solution that upon the initial login, the user lands on a dashboard. And in support of a remote workforce, this dashboard would be configured as a company portal. It would be designed specifically, consciously in support of this idea that we no longer have this central location that everybody comes to and, interacts in, where we can, put up on the wall stated company policies and know that every single person will see them because they all walk through the same set of doors. Instead, we use technology and this concept of what we actually call a company hub, but you might also call a company portal. It's a company hub that, based on the client's needs, we would design to show what they need those remote workers to see every single day when they log into the system to clock in for the first time. What usually this involves is one way or another, a display of the company's mission, vision, values. Sometimes, an image, right there that's embedded in the dashboard that comes from the company's website. For clients that utilize our technology to its fullest extent, they would also post company announcements that would display on the company hub. And then there would be a place where upcoming events would be displayed as well. So if there's virtual events that a company with a remote workforce hosts, maybe they do, happy hour, every Friday, company, chit chat sort of FaceTime things. And so the upcoming events would always display, whatever is on the schedule for this week or next week or, anything like that. So that's one of the main ways in which we've assisted our clients to use our technology as a solution for remote workers. The other thing that we've also done is one of our partners is a company that we work with to offer to our customers a labor law poster subscription service and a physical laminated delivery service as well. And through this same solution, it's actually a friend of mine that owns the company. They developed a labor law poster solution specifically for remote workforce, which we also push out to customers that need it. Basically what it is, and we would link this to the company hub that employees log into. But basically what it is it's basically a learning management system. The employees just log into and acknowledge that they've reviewed, the mandatory postings and then apply e-signature to it. And then now regardless of what state the individual works in, that they have seen all of the mandatory postings that they're required to. They've signed off on them. And again, that's embedded into the company hub for customers that need it.
Yeah, that's good. And I'm thinking of a couple of different things when I'm listening to you talk. One is the death of the company newsletter. So many organizations used to have newsletters. A lot of them don't anymore because they feel like it's archaic. But then what? Sure, maybe the senior leaders feel like they know everything that's going on. I would argue they probably don't. As somebody who was a senior leader at an organization, there was a lot that I didn't know that was going on in the culture of the organization. But if we're not being intentional, so I love it being used as a hub. A lot of us have Teams or SharePoint or Drive or, all these different places, and documents are everywhere. And so knowing when it comes to employee documentation, whether it's the handbook or policies or a list of company holidays or whatever that is, it being in one place, it's really a lost art. And I think something that we should be focusing on and bringing back, especially in this world of some people have returned to work, some people have not. This is the new way. And so I think that's great. I love that as a systematic approach. So can you share some insights into how data and analytics are utilized to optimize workforce management and improve decision-making for business with your technology?
Absolutely. The data that we have in our system for our customers is so powerful, and it is so deep. And it's just a matter of having the ability to effectively and easily manipulate that data, turn it into charts and graphs, bring the right rows and columns onto the various different screens that you're looking at within the system. In our technology, when I'm talking about our system, I don't refer to I don't use the word report. Okay. A report is old language. That is from, pre-cloud technology. A report is set in stone. It is something that you don't have the ability to control the layout of. You can't manipulate the rows and the columns that are on it. And usually it's in paper form. And so, in our system, what I refer to is, the things that most people would consider to be a report, a payroll register, or a, job cost by department report. There are different ways of viewing data. Okay. Every screen in our system is comprised of rows and columns, and we can bring in, all sorts of additional rows or columns onto any screen and, filter and group and, make it show us the data that is important for a customer to see. So then the question is, okay, well, great. We have this payroll system that has, all sorts of information in it. Well, there's so much information in it that for somebody that isn't, doing this every day, it's enough to make your head spin. And when you already have a business to run and, you need to make sure that you're complying with all of the, labor laws and all of that too, who has the time to sit down and think about, well, what data should be important to me? So what we have done is we have, in order to help our customers digest the value that they could achieve through the effective display of graphics and analytics on dashboards for managers and higher level users of the system, we help by giving them a starting point and by asking some questions. So for instance, one of the things that we do for all of our new customers, and we have been slowly going back into the existing clients over time to put this in their dashboards as well, but it's simply one of the most basic visualizations that we can create, which is a cost comparison of the most recently finalized payroll to the payroll prior to it. So basically it's a pie chart, two pie charts next to each other, and they both show in sections, the portion that's a net pay, the portion that's taxes, and the portion that's benefits. And the idea there is at a glance, the person who's overseeing that payroll, if they were to see all of a sudden at a glance that the benefits portion is taking up more than it should, or the taxes portion is taking up more than it should, at a glance, it just gives them something to see. Oh, I wonder why that looks like it does. And they click on the part of the pie chart that's on display, and it brings them directly into the analytics that they need to analyze, what's going on. Alternatively, additionally, another default visualization that we put on display for a customer is the overtime hours cost report. And we do the same concepts there as the overtime hours cost report. Just shows we strip out everything else and we only show the cost of overtime hours. And we do it as a comparison of this most recently finalized to the last finalized payroll. We could also, for some clients, it's been requested to make it a comparison of the most recently finalized payroll to the same payroll processed last year. Because, restaurants, hospitality, sometimes their, comparison is more valuable when it's, the same week last year, not last week. So we help our clients, with visualizations like that to actually put it in front of them to begin with. But then we need our customers to help us understand what other data analytics they need access to or in the ability to see. Again, the data, it's all there, for, how much we've paid our executives over history, how much we've paid our sales team over history, how much we've paid in various earnings codes, how much does health insurance cost us? All of these things are all in the database. So, we could easily, fill up a screen with way too much, with pie charts and line graphs and things like that. So we start by showing the customer a little bit of the possibilities of what we can do. And then we let them inform us of what they really need. And initially, they don't even usually know what they really need on day one. So, 3 months out, 6 months out, a year out, we're, continuing to receive additional requests from existing customers to add this graph or that graph or, to get retrained on how to do it themselves.
Yeah. And isn't it fun when they see the power of the data? I love that.
Right? Especially when, we have customers that I log into their account sometimes and I see that they do stuff with the system that I didn't even know it could do. And that's brilliant.
Yeah, that's awesome. So what are some key features and innovations? We've kind of talked a little bit about these, but that set certain HR and payroll software solutions apart from others in the market. I know there's a ton of tools out there. Most of them have similar basics. I would say a key differentiator, in my opinion, is customer service and things like that. But what are some of the features and innovations that do set these systems apart?
Absolutely. A great question. And I do think that with there are some ways that things can be that otherwise can be hidden in a demo or hard to see can be brought to the fore when it comes to technology solutions. And one of the things, so our philosophy and the philosophy, I think, of a technology provider that is ideal for a medium and small employer is not just one that has right customer service, but has the right technology. Okay. And there are a number of systems out there. And some of these were, the big competitors whose names I won't mention here. But for the most part, the big competitors out there in the payroll space, what they actually did is, long ago, many years ago, they decided that they needed to create technology for their staff to keep payroll in. Their clients were calling in payroll. They were faxing in payroll, maybe emailing as well. And they needed a system for their employees to put payroll in. And then it occurred to somebody somewhere along the way that, well, why are we paying our own people to do this work? Why don't we just flip this on its head and point it at the customer and have them enter their own payroll? And so you end up with a situation where you have these big companies, these Fortune 500 companies that were never software development companies to begin with. But they developed software internally for their mass production purposes. And then someone has the brilliant idea, well, let's not pay our own people to do this. Let's get the client to pay us and have them do the work too. And so there was never any consideration given from the get-go, from the start, on user experience. And in many ways, when you are looking at systems, this is where I would encourage you to focus your attention. User experience is where it is all about. If the system that you are considering is not capable of convincing you to use it because the user experience is so nailed down and spot on, chances are it's not possible for it to get so nailed down and spot on to begin with. And, it's probably one of these older systems that really was never designed for employee use to begin with, but they have done it, because they had to compete. So that's one of the things that I would suggest. Customer service is super important, of course. From a customer service perspective, there's really two flavors of the service experience in our worlds. One is, the dedicated assigned client account manager experience, which is how we operate. And then there's the queue experience. The queue experience is, we have a team of client account managers, none of whom are assigned to any specific customers. And as customers send in emails or make phone calls into the central line, our team picks up the next item in the queue, and then they just go accordingly. The latter experience does tend to create greater internal efficiencies and higher profit margins for a traditional service-based organization like mine if you weren't already focused on automation and efficiency like we are. But it does not create the kind of client engagement that we are striving for. Our customers, the average tenure in the industry for client retention, I think, is 5 years. Our average is in the 8 to 10 year range. We have, 2% attrition every year. And I think that's in no small part due to the fact that every one of our customers has a personal relationship with the person that manages their number one operating expense.
Yeah, you're making me think of two different things. One is you're speaking from like a business owner perspective. You know what your goals are. Your goal is the customer experience. So you are operating your internal processes around that and not around, I know you keep an eye on profit as well, obviously, but when your goal is that customer experience and you know that leads to retention, which impacts your profitability. But as a business owner, I love what you're saying there. That's great feedback, because that's what our businesses need to do, is determine what their goal is, and then their processes fall around that. And that's super helpful. The other thing I would say about your business model, and you're talking about user experience, is I have partnered with, you can imagine, over 22 years of HR, I've partnered with a ton of HR payroll companies, whether I've used them as a client or referred other people to them. And I see a couple of other key differences. One is it the type that gets people implemented and then you push them to a bunch of videos and downloadables for them to, it's like a choose your own path. They figure out how to use the system, and it's kind of up to their determination. And we know, just from my client base, and I'm sure you see it too, a lot of small to mid-sized businesses, they have somebody's spouse who's the office manager who's kind of executing on HR or payroll. That does not mean that person is tech savvy. And so now we're leaving it in that person's hand to utilize a payroll technology or an HR technology when maybe they're not tech savvy themselves. And this is a decent line item on the P&L. These technologies are more affordable than they ever have been, in my opinion, but it's still like something that your company's paying for, and you're probably not even using it efficiently or effectively. And so, just to point out, like, Checkmate's philosophy, and I know this firsthand because I actually have a client with them right now, and we're implementing a new module, and I'm seeing the way it works. And it's the way that it's worked the whole time that I've partnered with them. And that is, sure, if you want to, watch some videos and train yourself because you feel comfortable, they've got those resources for you too. Or they've got an individual who will literally walk you through, your HR person, your office manager, your executive director, whoever, depending on your organization. They'll walk you through the process one-on-one and teach you how to use it. And if you are courting an HR payroll system, ask those questions on how you're going to be trained on the process, because it is a huge differentiator on the long-term success of the software. Would you agree? Or I guess I'd say, why do you do it this way?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. And it all goes back to the core philosophy here. The core philosophy being that we are here to empower our customers to use technology to generate more efficiencies and to do business more effectively. And, and we we hold that, through and through, it's core to everything that we do. And if we were to be sitting here, in the position where, okay, yep, we've onboarded you, customer, here's the pre-recorded videos, figure it out, it's all up to you now, then the next thing we know, the customer, instead of asking us, well, can your system also do X, Y, or Z? The next thing we know is that, one of our bigger competitors gets invited in to provide a demo. And, our customer tells us when they leave that, yes, they left because System X could do this thing they wanted. And, turns out that ours could too, but they never, gave us the time to, have that conversation. It's the idea here is that no customer of ours should ever hesitate to interact with us for any reason, especially because they want to learn or be empowered to use our technology more. That we carry that all the way through to, if we have a primary point of contact and we've thoroughly trained them on the system on a number of different things, we've taken, 2, 4, 6 hours of our time, one-on-one training. And then a few months later, that person leaves and now their replacement comes in. And we need to do the same, training again. We're not going to, hit the brakes and, demand some hourly rate in order to get the new point of contact at our customer trained and up to speed and empowered to do what the old person used to do. Now, if that person then leaves in, a month or two, we might have a conversation on third person, but our philosophy is that at each point along the way, we are here to empower our customers to use this technology to the greatest extent possible. And we do not want to inspire anybody to, we want to inspire people to utilize their own resources, look at the user guides and all that to the extent that they're effective. But it would really, really aggravate me to learn that one of our points of contact at a customer spent 2 hours looking at a user guide on how to do a thing that we could have spent 15 minutes showing them how to do.
Yeah, that's an offensive and a defensive strategy. And I love it. I love the intentionality behind that. And I think over the years, all of us in business have said, how can we make this as efficient as possible? But in doing so, sometimes we lose sight of the implications of that. And so I love from an intentional perspective that you're like, this gives us an opportunity to learn more about the client and where they're trying to go. And it could, not that you're, trying to sell more, but
we are. Believe me, we just aren't aggressive at it. So it's something that when you do it like this, then what ends up happening is that, the customer is interested. The customer is, the payroll implementation went so smoothly. And I know you mentioned that there's some electronic time system involved. Maybe we should actually think about that. What it does is it means that we don't have to employ a sales force to upsell to our existing client base because, through the experience, the day-to-day experience, the implementation experience, oftentimes the goal is achieved, because, it's done in a way that encourages our customers to want to buy more.
Yeah. You're building that trust. They're seeing the implementation wasn't so bad. Now they can use the system. And so now they might want to talk about that applicant tracking piece or, like adding on the additional modules. So I love that. So looking toward the future, through our crystal ball, what trends do you foresee in HR and payroll tech, and how are software solutions positioned to adapt and innovate in response to these trends?
So as far as trends go and looking into the future, I see a couple of key trends coming along. One is more and more states are enacting retirement plan mandates. So more and more, we are seeing employers who previously had not considered introducing a retirement plan as a benefit offering, either forced to do that by state mandate or trying to get ahead of it. For instance, there are some states where the legislation is pending, but it's not effective yet. And employers are introducing retirement plans anyway. I foresee, an uptick in something that has been really slow to be adopted across, employers generally, which are earned wage access, pay cards that have access to your wages before payday. And that is something that I see a huge amount of value, especially for your lower paid people. And, it's basically the gold standard that would put somebody in a position where if they were ever in need of considering, one of those horrendous, payday loans or, cash loans on car titles or something, earned wage access is a way where they can, at literally no cost, have access to have their paycheck early. There's a bunch of vendors that offer it out there right now, but there even those vendors have been tepid in how actively they're promoting it. We have a solution through our platform to offer it. And I do think that it is a beneficial offering for mainly your lower paid workforce. But definitely something that I think we'll see getting picked up on more. But the bigger trend, honestly, historically speaking, HR technology has been, not thoroughly adopted by your, I would say 100 employee and fewer count companies, generally speaking, I would more so among the 50 and fewer, especially, I would say for your 20 to 50 employee companies, trend wise, the first use of any form of HR technology at all, whether that is onboarding new employees or it's benefits enrollment or it's performance management. Just the first time we've brought anything that used to be done via paper forms online at all, I think is a big trend that is starting to pick up. We have, every month a greater number of customers in that 20 to 50 realm that are adopting, one or more pieces of HR than we ever have before. And it's that rate is only increasing. I think it's really just starting to pick up.
I love that because I am constantly, like every client that I have, that's one of my first questions that I ask when I start to go through that life cycle of the employee. I'm like, hey, are you open to an HR payroll technology? What's the smallest size of client that you have?
Oh, one employee, seasonal employer that they pay their employee two months a year. One employee. So that's the smallest. And of course, the largest is a few thousand employees across a number of states. We're countrywide. So all the states and the territories. So, we do file payroll taxes in St. John.
Those lucky people.
Right.
Yeah. So I push my clients toward this technology at any size, but I definitely think, when they're getting up around 10, I start to feel nervous for them. Like, hey, how are you tracking I-9s? How are you tracking tax information? Like, how are you doing this? And I know companies like, and this is no knock because I love QuickBooks for a number of reasons. Mm-hmm. It's great for small business owners just getting started. So helpful. But when I hear people say like, oh, I'm doing my HR tech through QuickBooks, I'm like, well, I see that QuickBooks has made a partnership with Mineral and they've done a few different things. But anytime you've got a company that their core function is this, and then they bolt on this, that's cool. They see that there's like a target market, there's a market share that they can access. But typically that also means that that's not their first priority. And the innovation and the support in that area is going to be lacking. So just another thing to think about, listeners, when you're thinking through your HR payroll technology needs, that if you've got a system that its primary function is one thing, but then you've got access to a few different things, I guess take the next best step for you if that's what, the only option that you have. But think through talking to some of these other companies. I do vetting process with a number of different technologies for my clients. So there's people that can help you on this and help you make the right decision. But it's cheaper, it's more affordable, I would say, than what you probably think. And it's going to take some things off your plate, like a lot of the payroll and tax paying and stuff like that you are going to be like, oh my gosh, money well spent. But typically when I'm talking to a client, these technologies are more affordable than you would think. So I'd recommend you get some quotes and get out there and see the way that it can impact your business. So Josh, before we wrap today, is there anything else that you'd like to share?
So yes, there is one major thing that I would like to share, which is an invitation for any of the listeners who might be online, and taking some value from this podcast. Anybody who reaches out to Checkmate for a quote or to learn more about our services, we will be providing 20% off our standard rates for any of the podcast listeners. Right now, we don't have a special URL for the podcast listeners. So when you go out to our website, which is Checkmate HCM. Again, checkmatehcm.com. When you go out to our website and you submit a request for quote or a request for demo, just put into the comment field that you learned about us through this podcast, and we will honor that discount. So I do appreciate, Kerri, the opportunity to talk to your listeners. This has been really fun, and thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And folks, I'll link that in the show notes. So we'll make sure that we get the URL up to Josh's website on the show notes. So choosing the right technology can feel like chaos. Going through an implementation with a new software can too, but it's also an opportunity to take the next best step toward efficiency in your workplace. You can't appear to be tech savvy on the outside and run archaic processes on the inside of your business, no matter what size you are. So don't waste this chaos. Embrace it. Till next time.